An advocate for human rights, diversity, and inclusion, breaking barriers, and became the first woman ambassador of the United Kingdom to Manila. We go up close and personal with UK Ambassador Laure Beaufils in this episode of Manila Conversations. How would you describe or measure Philippine-UK relations, first as a diplomat and second as a foreigner assigned here in Manila?
Well, as a diplomat, I would say it's a growing and expanding relationship. And the beauty, as you said, Tristan, I've been here for nearly 3 years. One more to go, I'm delighted to say. And the wonderful thing is that I've seen the relationship grow in the last 3 years. So we're now working on areas that we never even touched upon 3 years ago. We've got a bigger embassy, doing more things with more depth. And I think that's a testament to the fact that we're here to stay over a longer period of time. So we're now working on areas like AI governance, doing a lot on cyber, doing a lot on new technologies, so really cutting edge work that we're doing together with the government of the Philippines. And to answer the second part of your question on the nature of the relationship more from a personal perspective, I think it's also growing in many different ways, right? So we don't have the same historical relationship, say, that you would have with the US or that we have with Commonwealth countries. So we're learning about each other. And again, that's really quite exciting because we're seeing more and more young people choose to come and study in the UK. We're seeing more and more tourists come to the Philippines. We're seeing Filipino food celebrated in more and more restaurants in the UK, and not just Jollibee, although there are going to be soon 50 Jollibee restaurants in the UK. And so for me, that's really exciting and really, really important, building those bridges, what we in the world of diplomacy call the people-to-people relationships, but it's really about understanding our respective culture, understanding that we've got so much in common in terms of our values and our outlook on the world. So both on the personal and the professional, I think it's a really exciting time to be working on UK-Philippines relationships.
So you applied for this job and became the first woman ambassador of UK to Manila. Do you see it more as a challenge or a bigger responsibility?
To be honest, neither. I think the fact that I'm a woman is irrelevant in terms of my ability to do the job in the Philippines,
Yes.
because there are so many strong, powerful Filipino women in really senior positions, whether that's business or government or elsewhere. So I have not had to face any sense of discrimination. That may not have been the case across the world, but it's certainly the case in the Philippines, where I don't feel that my gender was a challenge or a disadvantage. I was part of the norm, and we have quite a lot of women ambassadors here as well, which is important. That said, I think it was important as a precedent to have a woman ambassador here, given that it's the first time we have a woman ambassador from the UK, to inspire younger women in the office, to demonstrate that you can do it just as effectively, to show that, even though I've got young kids, I don't have to choose, I can do it both, I've just got to do it my way. And so there's the symbolism of the fact that I'm the first woman ambassador is not lost on me, even though ultimately I don't think it was material in my appointment or it affected the way I'm doing the job.
You've also mentioned that there are many, at least, female ambassador here in the Philippines.
That's right.
And sometimes you post like your gatherings,
That's right.
your group photos. But there was one ambassador who told me that, there may be a lot, but we need more.
Well, so I think we just need equality, right? So you should think on average you'd have 51% of ambassadors that are women. That would be a right place to be, because that's what we represent in the population. And I do think that in general, and this is not just from a gender perspective, but all aspects of society, we need to have fair representation, and we need to have different voices at the table to represent different walks of life and different ways of thinking, to avoid groupthink, and to ensure that there's challenge and diversity of thought. So in as much as we should have more women ambassadors, I also think that we should have ambassadors that are representing different LGBT groups, that are representing different groups including disability, etc., to demonstrate that this profession is for everyone. It's really not the exclusive reserve of a certain category of men, as was perhaps the case not that long ago. And I think that's why when I'm doing this job, I'm very conscious of the fact that I want to be authentic and my real self, and not try to be, that middle of the bell curve diplomat of 50 years ago that wears striped pin suits for the sake of argument, because I think different types of people can do the job really, really well, bringing their true selves to work as a diplomat, and that is what's going to make them successful.
Hence the description of you by other stories as modern-day diplomat. What does it actually mean for you? How does someone become a modern-day diplomat?
Well, so for me, what does it mean? First of all, my trajectory is not the traditional trajectory. So I haven't, been a diplomat for the last 25 years before becoming an ambassador. I've done quite a few things. I worked in the private sector. I've worked a lot on international development. I've worked for civil society organizations in different parts of the world. So that's one thing. I also think it means not fitting into that mold that I was just referring to, which I felt a little bit of pressure to conform with when I started off, because I thought that's what respected diplomats should look like. But now I firmly believe that being a modern diplomat means bringing different skill sets, humor, humanity, a personal touch, because that is modern Britain, right? In modern Britain, which I represent, there's so much diversity. And if we're going to represent our country and champion our country, we should show that in the way that we engage with people. We should bring qualities that are not just old-fashioned qualities of intelligence and strategic thinking, but kindness, innovation, positive energy, passion, care for the vulnerable, etc. These are all parts of being a modern diplomat, in my mind.
What were your first impressions about the Philippines, like the first few months?
So I felt that it was a really dynamic place. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of ambition. There's a lot of events in the evening, because I think Filipinos are incredibly social and have a really strong sense of community. So I really got that sense of community and family and dynamism. I feel that it's a place of opportunity, a place that has got so much potential and so much going for it. Equally, I do now know, 3 years down the line, having traveled quite a lot, that there's also a lot of diversity within the country. And so it was really good, as soon as I was able to travel post-pandemic, that I was able to get out of NCR and travel to as many places as possible across the country to meet lots of different Filipinos from different regions and provinces, and understand their perspective, because NCR is definitely not representative of the whole of the Philippines.
Yeah, so you visited Batanes, Bohol, Cagayan, Cotabato, Ilocos Norte. These are some of the places you've been to. Which among these places really made a mark on you?
Well, some
in
of
your
these
personal
places
capacity?
I've been to on many occasions already. You mentioned Cotabato, because we have a large program of support to the BARM in support of the peace process. I've been to Cotabato countless times. And other places like Davao, of course, that are so significant and important, I've been to countless times. In terms of which ones have made a mark on me, I guess, again, it depends on whether you're talking about the professional Laure or the personal.
Let's do both. Let's
do both. Well,
professional.
Professional, My first professional trip was to Iloilo. I really enjoyed that. I got a sense that there was lots happening in Iloilo, and that was kind of open. It made a mark perhaps because it was the first, but nonetheless, it was beautiful. Food was great, lots of interesting people. So maybe that's the professional mark. In terms of the personal, I've been very lucky to travel quite a lot across the country, and it's just really impossible to just set out which places hit you most. I mean, the traditional are perhaps Palawan and Boracay, and goodness knows those were absolutely stunning, and I was very lucky to be there with my family. But the ones that I did not expect as much to be blown away with were Siargao, which quite frankly beats Bali any day. You know, I love the vibe, the fact that it's so relaxed, food's gorgeous, so many places to discover. I really enjoyed that. I'm a bit of a mountain person, so I also really enjoyed Baguio, and the fact that you can just sleep with your window open, and you can smell the pines, and that was beautiful. And I loved Ilocos Norte and how wild nature is over there, and the beauty of the sea. Ilocos Norte and Batanes, I should say, both looking north, very, very different landscapes, very wild and green and lush. So, I mean, I guess the overall conclusion that there's so much to see and do in the Philippines, and so much variety again, that I was lucky enough to see. But there's still so many places I've got to go to, right? Still
There's 7,000 islands.
I know.
And I was about to ask you top 3 places, but like what you've said, there are so many places to choose from, and it's difficult to choose maybe at least 3. But if you're willing to share,
well, I guess
top
3, there you have it. You know, I mean, I can't not include Palawan and Boracay, but the 3 where I had a kind of a jaw-dropping, oh my God, this is so astonishing moments were probably Siargao, Baguio, and Ilocos Norte.
And Ambassador, down to my last few questions, but of course you have different programs in the embassy.
Yes.
You've already mentioned portions of it. You have programs in BARM and in other areas. But for you, what is the most personal to you? What is the closest to your heart among all these initiatives and programs?
Wow, that's a really, really tricky question. Well, when I project myself to next year, in August 2025, I will sadly be packing my bags. And sometimes I think, what do I want to have achieved before then in the next year? And there are a few areas which are still important to me. One where I think we can still do better together, and where I'm quite keen that we do more, is around the creative industries and performance arts in particular, because I think there's so much talent in the Philippines, and there's also so much talent in the UK, and I think there are real opportunities to bring our young people together that are working in the performance arts, because our models are really compatible in terms of size and in terms of ways of working. And I'd love to see theatres from the West End partner with theatres here, or performance art schools partner with performance arts school here, and some of the talent, huge, extraordinary talent from the Philippines, come to the UK and grow the artistic talent there as well. So I think there's stuff there that I'd like to do. Another one, I guess, is on education, simply because I started my career working on education, and I feel really strongly about the fundamental importance of basic education and in fact early childhood education, which, as we know, are directly correlated to well-being, nutritional status, health, and jobs ultimately. And I would love for us to be able to have an even deeper conversations on early childhood and basic education, and have a greater societal debate around that as well, because as we know, educational outcomes in the Philippines are sadly not where we'd like them to be. And I think it's really important that there's a broader conversation around that, so that We don't find ourselves in a situation where in 15 years' time, the kids that are now in school today haven't been trained adequately, and there's increased inequality and not enough people to do the jobs that are required to take the Philippines to the next level in terms of economic development, like not enough engineers for cyber issues or for AI or for microchips or goodness knows. And so I think education is a really important one. And then what else? Well, maybe back to the beginning of our conversation, Tristan, it's really important to me that over the course of my 4 years, I've strengthened the understanding that the UK has of the Philippines and vice versa. So strengthen the Philippines brand in the UK and the UK brand in the Philippines. So here in the Philippines, we're doing a lot of public diplomacy events, talking about our culture, our artists, our food, our music. We do as much of that as possible, and we try to do that across the country, so that people are more familiar with the UK, and that they know that we're friends, we're like-minded, and that when young people think about where to study, they come and study in the UK. When they think about where to partner on research and innovation, they think about the UK. When they think about who are going to be the reliable friends on maritime security, they think about the UK, and they understand what we stand for. I think that's very important to me.
Ambassador, as a last note, how would you describe the impact of your post here in Manila, first as a diplomat and as a person?
Well, it's almost a question that I feel I should be answering as I leave, and thankfully I've got another a year and 3-4 months before that's the case. But I've obviously already reflected a little bit on this, and one of the things that has struck me in the Philippines is just quite how positive people are a lot of the time. And one of the theses that I have on this, and I'd be interested in your views, is that a lot of people in the Philippines have a strong sense of community and family and belonging. And as such, people are seldom alone. And there's a sense that people are sharing with their communities and loved ones, whether that's sharing good times and bad times. And so there's a sense for me about how do you really create that sense of family, that's a broader understanding of family. How do you ensure that we learn? Well, what I'm trying to say is I'd like to take that home with me, that sense of broader community and belonging and openness and sharing. It's a very Filipino trait that I love, and that will stay with me for a very long time.
UK Ambassador Laure Beaufils, thank you so much for this conversation.
Thank you so much, Tristan. I really enjoyed it.